The featured news for today is on Delhi's draft master plan. Now, before we understand the details of it, we must understand that any plan is a draft. It's a draft, it's a vision document for that place to develop, right? So similarly, Delhi's master plan has been drawn so that Delhi could develop in a sustainable manner, right? Before we discuss the details, let me show you how it was developed in the past. Now see, this is the map of Delhi, the left one, and you can see green spaces towards the edge of the Delhi state. What is unplanned? No, it was planned. These were planned so that it could reduce the amount of pollution in the city. These were introduced so that it could mitigate the impact of desertification in the city. It could recharge the water sources in Delhi. This is where the Yamuna flows from, right? So these green areas, the corners, were planned, right? Look at these roads which radiate out of Delhi city. Were they unplanned? The road moving out to Faridabad, one to Jaipur, one north, one to Rohtak, and towards east in Ghaziabad. So these were all planned. This is the inner part of Delhi. This is the outer ring road. The outer ring road, was it planned or unplanned? It was, of course, planned, right? So these were the part of previous master plans. Now, there were pockets of Delhi which were very dense, right? For example, planned places like Rohini, Dwarka, these were planned areas, right? And there is residential population here. We have industrial area in Narela, we have industrial area at other places. Now, when the traffic has to move, this is a small case study of transportation development in Delhi. When the traffic has to move, it could move straight, right? But it would make the whole area congested, right? Moving through the actual spaces, and therefore, now the plan has been developed to create new roads. You can see these three important roads which are moving through specific places, right? So these roads will be called as the UER. These roads are called as the urban extension roads, constructed to decongest the residential areas, right? The consumer driven areas, to connect the industrial areas, right? Now you can see in the third map as well, right? This is the Delhi state, but you see two roads being constructed here, right? Western Peripheral Expressway and Eastern Peripheral Expressway. These roads are constructed beyond the Delhi state. Why? Because Delhi is overall at the center of the country, right? Now, if some goods have to move north or south or west or east, why do they have to cross Delhi? So therefore, these roads have been constructed and planned to move away from Delhi, to decongest the space of Delhi so that pollution is less. So this is how planning is done. This is an example of transport planning, right? One more example of transport planning is how metros are planned in Delhi, right? Now see, initially important metro routes were designed to radiate out of Delhi's central business district, right? Radiate out of Delhi in different areas. This is east, Noida. This is south, Gurugram, right? So this is how, this is north, all right. But later in the next stage of planning, they try to connect all these areas, right? Connect all the peripheries through circular routes. So this was a very good level of planning, and this has helped in metro reaching out to the last mile, right? Sustainable planning. Now, on the same lines, we will understand very quickly what happened with this 2041 plan, right? Now, the main agenda of planning is three. One, social development, equitable, economic development, and most of all, environment, which is important criteria for Delhi. Now, city like Delhi also goes through an important thing called as migration, right? So migration has to be kept into factor. Population density has to be seen. Then we must understand the impact of corona and lesson learned from it, right? Then we have water crisis. So let's see what Delhi has done to handle it, right? First of all, what do we need for social development? Education for people, food, green housing, right? And then we need energy resources, transportation, last mile transportation, recreation areas. So this is a part of social development. What do we need in economic development? We need sources of employment and we need renewable sources, right? so that we can handle the future demands as well of energy. And what about environmental issues? We want energy efficiency, we want recycling methods, right? So this is what, and we want lesser pollution. So considering all these things in mind, all these strategies in mind for sustainable development, let us quickly look at what this vision document contains. So first of all, if we look at the environment, right, green blue infrastructure. Now what is this? Green blue infrastructure is nothing but green relating to environmental rejuvenation, for example trees and green belt, and blue relates to all the water, drain, wastewater handling. So this green blue infrastructure says that wherever we have drains, why not have trees along them? Why not have a green belt along them? This will help the trees to flourish through the help of the blue infrastructure. That means water, drains, and this will also absorb a lot of this will also replenish the environment, right? So this is how we will not even need to purify the water here. A lot of things will happen in the ecosystem itself, right? So talking of greenways along these natural drains. Now please note down this important keyword, green blue infrastructure, very important for a city like Delhi, right? Okay, so second one could be specialized clusters for the economy. Now see, during the times of corona, what have we learned? What have we learned for a city like Delhi? Now here there were a lot of zones drawn, right? Self-containment zones. So those zones would contain shops as well. They would contain the whole ecosystem to spend the life, right? Doctors, medical facilities, education facilities, and this is how specialized clusters for delivery of goods, for management of cities must be developed, right? To specialize the places from those places where there were industrial areas to strategic units, right? So economy. Delhi is also a heritage city, right? So preservation of the heritage is an important part of every plan, right? We cannot do away with that. Infrastructure. What about infrastructure? Now, since Delhi is an important place where people migrate, students come, medical facilities are there, there is a lot of employment, consumerism, and therefore a lot of permanent residents of Delhi are not there. People transit through Delhi, and therefore space, small format spaces, affordable housing for single women, one room set, those kind of houses have been promoted in the social infrastructure, right? Mobility. Now, as we saw the map about the road infrastructure and the metro, the idea is to connect last mile, right? The metro should be able to connect to people at the last mile. Similarly, walking and cycling have been promoted to promote green future, right? Multimodal integration. That means if we have metros flying to a distance, we must have e-rickshaws or we must have autos, right? So these are the multimodal transport system planned for Delhi city, right? Physical infrastructure, green buildings. Now, Delhi is a place which consumes maximum amount of energy and a lot of it is also wasted. So therefore, the idea is to have green buildings. For example, why not utilize the natural lights, sunlight during the day? This is one of the agenda. Another agenda of green building rating is also that it must be disaster resilient. Delhi falls in category 4, right, of earthquake, and therefore we must have disaster resilience city as well, right? Water harvesting. Every structure for housing must have water harvesting to save water and recharge water, right? There are areas where Delhi has planned that floor area ratio should be less. Floor area ratio, that means the area utilized for living and the total area, right? That proportion. That means the area will be utilized more for rejuvenation activities, less for living. So there will be more space for doing social areas, right? Another important place where this plan works is private sector participation. Now, Delhi Development Authority has been the major participant for constructing homes in this space. Now, inclusion of private sector will also help injection of more investment in the economy and faster development of Delhi as a city, as a state, as a country capital, right? So quickly note down these important components of the master plan of Delhi, right? We quickly discussed these important plans. First of all, this is a draft plan, right? And this has been released in the space for 45 days. You also can suggest your inputs so that the vision document gets more inclusive in nature, right? Okay. So first of all, it has to be sustainable. You have to note down 3 important things: social, economic, and environmental aspects. If you quietly sit for 30 seconds, you will understand what are the social aspects. It deals with your life, my life, very common, right? We need house, we need energy, we need Clean water, this is what is social requirement. Environment, recycling of products. Economy, we need employment, we need a cleaner source of energy. So this is what it is about. And what do we need here in this? So planning of the whole city is more than planning of one person's life, right? This is important. As an administrator, we have to understand this, and therefore green blue infrastructure is an important key. Note down this keyword, right? Then specialized clusters, right? Also self-sustainable clusters. Then we have heritage city. What about living space? Small rental affordable housing, right? Transport, an important part of any city. Transit oriented, right? Walking, multimodal integration, important, right? Green buildings, disaster management, and then planning of the residential areas, floor area ratio, private sector participation. Note down these things and this will help you write a beautiful answer on this, right? Now we must also look at some of the issues which can be a hindrance while the execution of plan for draft Delhi 2041 plan is executed. So what are these issues? For example, inaccurate population projections. Now if we don't have exact population projections for the future, if we don't understand how much population is living at what places, we will not be able to plan the roads accordingly, right? This is one example of it, right? How about health infrastructure? How about education? So these inaccurate population projections is an important issue, right? People participation. Government has planned this much, but if people come on to encroaching the spaces, if people do not participate in recycling of the economy, right, in circular economy, then this is an issue again, right? What about monitoring of the changing conditions, right? For example, climate change, is that factor counted in? What about the issue of flooding, right? So have we counted those changes? So those things need to be seen. So implementation is another issue, planning is another issue. So this is what the article speaks of. After this, you can attempt this question. Analyze master plan for Delhi 2041 with reference to sustainable urban planning specific to Indian cities. Specific to Indian cities. So what is specific to Indian cities? Migration is very much specific. Employment is very much specific, right? Disparity in income levels, that is very much specific to Indian cities, right? And people migrate for various reasons. Now this is unlike the kind of migration that happens in America, unlike the kind that happens in Europe. So think about it and you try to attempt this question, right? Okay.